The dim hum of clippers filled the shining air-conditioned barbershop, the most popular one in Lagos. Ayo the barber moved his hands with incredible speed, cutting a customer's hair as if his clippers had a mind of their own. His barbershop, Sharp Cut Masters, was always packed. From morning till late at night, men and women lined up, eager to get their hair done by him. There were other barbershops in the area, clean, well-equipped, and with skilled barbers, but none of them could compete with Ayo. He was fast and charming. His clients always left satisfied, tipping generously. Ayo's cuts are magical, one customer said. He will have you looking sharp in minutes. But behind Ayo's success lay a secret. Each night, after the shop closed and the lights dimmed, he gathered the hair clipping into black bags. While the city vibrates with the sound of cars and street vendors, Ayo took a quiet route back to his mansion. He stored the hair in a locked room, filled with chips, stacked with strange items, candles, powders, and a wooden idol, carved with complicated designs. The idol was the source of his success. Years ago, when Ayo struggled to make ends meet as a young barber, he had met an elderly man who claimed to have a solution to his poverty. The man gave Ayo the idol and set off instructions. Use the hair of your customers as an offering to keep the spirit happy, and in return, you will have wealth and customers beyond your wildest dreams. It worked. From that day forward, Ayo's fortunes changed. Customers came in droves. His speed became unmatched, and he moved from one-room apartment to a huge mansion in Ikoyi. Ayo's success didn't go unnoticed. Other barbers in the area, like Tunde, Emeka, and Jide, began to complain. Why is it only Ayo that's getting customers? Jide asked one evening as they sat outside his shop. We are here all day and barely anyone comes in. I heard he's using something, Tunde said, lowering his voice. Spiritual stuff. That's the only way to explain it. How can one man barber that many people in a day? The complaints turned into hatred, and soon the other barbers started spreading rumors. Some customers began to ask questions. Ayo, why are you always so fast? One man joked nervously. Ayo just laughed it off, brushing aside their suspicions. But not everyone was convinced. Linda, a curious young woman who lived in the neighborhood, started paying attention. She noticed the way Ayo always locked his shop at night, even though the cleaners could have done it for him. She noticed the black bags he carried and how he always avoided certain questions about his success. One night, Linda decided to follow him. She stayed hidden, watching as Ayo took his usual route home, holding the black bag tightly. When he reached his mansion, she saw him enter through a side door and disappeared into the darkness. The other barbers grew desperate. Their businesses were crumbling and some began to close shop. Tunde couldn't pay his rent anymore and moved back to his village. Emeka took up another job as a delivery driver. Jide's shop was always empty. The resentment turned to fear when Jide claimed he had seen Ayo whispering to a wooden figure one night through a crack in his window. Whatever he's doing is not normal, Jide told the others. I'm sure he's using all the hair for something evil. Linda, meanwhile, has started to dig deeper. She spoke to an old woman in the neighborhood who claimed to know about these kind of things. If he's using people's hair, he's binding them spiritually, the woman said. It's dangerous. That's why his business is growing while others are failing. One day as Ayo walked his clippers through a customer's hair, a man walked into the shop. He was dressed simply, but his piercing gaze cut through the room. He sat down quietly, observing Ayo as he walked. "Nice shop you have here," the man said casually when it was his turn. Ayo smiled, his usual charm on full display. "Thank you, sir. I try to give my customers the best." The man leaned closer as Ayo began cutting his hair. "You are very fast," he said. "Too fast, almost as if you have help." Ayo's hand shook for a brief moment before he laughed it off. "Practice, sir. Years of practice." But Ayo's heart raced. He could feel the walls closing in. The complaints, the rumors, Linda's growing curiosity. It was all becoming too much. The tension in the neighborhood grew. More people started questioning Ayo's success, but no one had concrete evidence. Linda was determined to find out the truth, even if it meant putting herself in danger. One night, she followed him again, this time with her phone in hand, ready to record. As she crept closer to the side door of Ayo's mansion, her breath caught in her throat. She could hear faint chants coming from inside. She pressed her ear to the door, straining to listen. Inside, Ayo was kneeling before the idol. The back of her opened before him. "Spirit of speed and wealth," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I bring you another offering. Keep me powerful. Keep them coming." Linda's phone slipped from her hand, banging against the pavement. Ayo froze, his chant interrupted. His head snapped towards the door. Linda froze, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She dropped to the ground, scrambling to grab her phone. The door cracked open and Ayo stepped out, his eyes scanning the darkness like a predator hunting its prey. "Who is there?" Ayo's voice was sharp, cutting through the still night air. Linda pressed herself flat against the wall, barely breathing. Her palms were sweaty as she grabbed her phone, praying he wouldn't see her. Ayo stepped further out, his gaze sweeping the shadows. For a moment, Linda thought he might turn back inside, but instead, he took a step closer to where she was hiding. "Whoever you are, this is your last warning," Ayo said, his voice calm but chilling. "Stay out of my business." Linda held her breath until she held the door closed behind him. Her legs felt like jelly as she stumbled away from the mansion, not daring to look back. The next morning, Linda woke up to a flood of missed calls and messages from her friend. Word had spread quickly. Ayo's barbershop was closed. A note was stamped to the glass door. "Shop temporarily closed due to maintenance. Sorry for the inconvenience." The news unsettled the neighborhood. Ayo had never closed his shop, not even on public holidays. Rumors spread. Some claimed he was sick. Others said he was avoiding a tax investigation. But Linda knew the truth. She spent the whole day replaying the video she had managed to capture. It wasn't much, just muffled chants and a brief glimpse of the wooden idol. But it was enough to confirm her suspicions. She needed to show someone, but who? Meanwhile, Ayo sat in his living room, the wooden idol placed on a base before him. Sweat dripped down his face as he paced back and forth. She knows, he muttered to himself. Someone knows. The spirit behind the idol seemed to mock him. Ayo knew the rules. The offering had to continue, or everything he had gained would vanish. Worse, the spirit would demand something far more valuable than her. I have gone too far to lose everything now. Linda confided in her closest friend, Eve, who worked as a journalist for a local online news outlet. Eve was skeptical at first, but agreed to meet her. When Linda showed her the video, Eve's eye widened. This is unsettling, Eve admitted, but we need more proof. A video like this won't hold up if anyone challenges it. What do you mean more proof? Linda asked, frustration creeping into her voice. I heard him chanting. I saw the idol. Linda, think about it, Eve said. If we go public with this and Ayo denies everything, we will look crazy. People love him. They will say we are just jealous or trying to ruin his business. We need something undeniable. Hesitantly, Linda agreed. But she couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. That night, Linda decided to return to Ayo's mansion, this time with Eve by her side. They parked a few streets away and approached the house cautiously. Eve carried a small camera with night vision, determined to capture clear evidence. The mansion was quiet, but the same faint chanting echoed from within. Linda and Eve crept to the side door, peeking through a crack in the curtains. Ayo was kneeling before the idol, his head bowed. Suddenly, Ayo stopped chanting. He turned sharply towards the window, his eyes locking onto the exact spot where they were hiding. You can't hide from me, he called out, his voice unnaturally deep. Come inside, let's talk. Linda and Eve exchanged terrified glances but did not move. Ayo stood, picking up the idol in one hand and the bag of hair in the other. He began walking towards the door. They bolted, their footsteps echoing in the quiet street. Behind them, the mansion door slammed open. Ayo's voice rang out, furious. You think you can stop me? You don't know who you are dealing with. The two women didn't stop running until they reached Eve's car. They jumped in, locking the doors as Ayo appeared in the distance. He didn't chase them, but stood in the middle of the street, the idol still in his hand. You will regret this, he shouted before turning back towards his house. Linda and Eve sat in stunned silence, their breath coming in gaps. We have to stop him, Linda finally said. How? Eve whispered. He's dangerous. I don't know, Linda admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. But we can't let him keep doing this. The next day, Linda and Eve began digging deeper into Ayo's past, uncovering stories of his sudden rise to success and the strange disappearance of some former customers. The more they learned, the more determined they became. But Ayo wasn't going to let them expose him so easily. The days that followed were filled with tension. Linda couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, and Eve noticed strange things happening around her apartment. Lights flickered, items moved out of place, and once her camera mysteriously stopped working. Ayo wasn't backing down. At night, Linda's phone buzzed with an unknown number. She hesitated before answering, her heart racing. Linda, Ayo's deep voice came through. You have been meddling with things that don't concern you. Her throat went dry. You can't scare me, Ayo. What you are doing is wrong and people need to know. You think you can stop me? You have no idea what you are dealing with. Walk away while you still can. The call ended abruptly, leaving Linda trembling. She immediately called Eve, but the line was dead. Meanwhile, Eve was frantically trying to save the footage from her camera to secure drive. Her apartment was eerily quiet, the unusual hum of city life muffled. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from her kitchen. Who is there? She called out, her voice shaking. There was no response. Grabbing a knife from the counter, she consciously moved towards the sand. Her heart pounded as she peeked into the kitchen. The window was open, the curtains blowing in the wind. When she turned back to her living room, her camera was gone. The next morning, Linda arrived at Eve's apartment to find her pacing the floor. He knows, Eve said, her voice frantic. He was here last night. My camera is gone. Linda felt a chill run down her spine. He's trying to scare us into stopping. Well, it's working, Eve admitted, her hands trembling. But we can't give up. We need to go to the police. They will laugh at us, Linda said. Without solid evidence, they won't believe a word we say. They sat in silence, both trying to think of their next move. Finally, Linda spoke. What if we find someone who used to work for him? Maybe they know something. They began visiting former employees of Ayo's Barbershop, many of whom were reluctant to talk. Most claimed to have no knowledge of anything unusual, but one man, Chukwudi, agreed to meet them in a quiet cafe. I worked for him for 2 years, Chukwudi said, keeping his voice low. At first, everything seemed normal, but then I started noticing things. What kind of things? Linda asked. He was obsessed with the hair, Chukwudi explained. He do collect it all himself and lock it in a cabinet in the back room. He said it was for proper disposal. But I knew something was off. Did you ever see him do anything with it? Eve pressed. Chukwudi hesitated, glancing around nervously. Once late at night, I went back to the shop because I forgot my wallet. I saw him sitting in the middle of the room with a bubble of hair in front of him. He was chanting. What happened after that? Linda asked, leaning in. I left and never went back, Chukwudi said. The next day, he called me and told me to keep quiet or I do regret it. That night, armed with this new information, Linda and Eve decided to stake out Ayo's barbershop. They parked across the street, waiting for him to show up. Around midnight, Ayo arrived. He unlocked the shop and went inside, carrying a large bag. The light flickered on, and they could see his shadow moving around. Eve switched on her camera. Let's get this. Through the short window, they saw Ayo pull out a bundle of hair and place it on a small altar. He lit a candle and began chanting. The air seemed to grow heavier, even from where they were sitting. Suddenly, Ayo turned and looked directly at their car. "How does he keep seeing us?" Eve whispered, panic in her voice. Ayo walked towards the door, a menacing grin on his face. "We need to leave," Linda said, starting the car. "No, we need this footage," Eve insisted. Ayo stepped outside, holding the idol in one hand. The street lights around them fingered and went out, plunging the area into darkness. "Drive, Linda!" Eve screamed. As the car sped off, Ayo's voice echoed behind them. "You can run, but you can't hide." The two women knew they were in over their heads. They needed more help and fast, but who could they trust? The drive back to Eve's apartment was tense. Linda gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles turning white, while Eve held her camera, ensuring the footage was still intact. "We need to go to someone who can help us," Linda finally said, her voice trembling. Eve nodded. "But who?" "The police won't believe this without proof, and Ayo clearly has connections. He will find a way to silence us." Linda bit up her lip, thinking hard. What about Chief Adebayo? He's influential and has been vocal about exposing corrupt practice in the city. Eve hesitated. "Do you think he will believe us?" "We have to try," Linda said firmly. "It's not just about us anymore. Ayo's hurting people, and someone had to stop him." The next morning, they made their way to Chief Adebayo's office. The receptionist was hesitant to let them in without an appointment, but Eve's insistence and a quick explanation of the situation eventually got them a brief audience with the chief. Chief Adebayo was a steam man with a commanding presence. He listened quietly as Linda and Eve recounted everything, showing him the footage of Eve's camera. When they finished, he leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "What you are telling me is disturbing," he said. "If this is true, Ayo isn't just a threat to your neighborhood, but to the entire city." "It is true," Linda said, her voice desperate. "We have seen it ourselves. He's using his customers' help for ritual to maintain his wealth and control his business. He needs to be stopped." Chief Adebayo tapped his fingers on the desk, deep in thought. "We need a plan. Ayo is dangerous, and confronting him directly could put your lives at risk." "What do we do then?" Eve asked. "We will expose him," Chief Adebayo said. "But we need more evidence, something undeniable that will force the authorities to act." That evening, Chief Adebayo assembled a small trusted team, including a private investigator and a tech expert, to help gather more evidence. The plan was simple: plant hidden cameras in Ayo's barbershop and mansion to capture his activities without his knowledge. Linda and Eve felt a renewed sense of hope as the team got to work. The tech expert, Ken, disguised himself as a customer and visited Ayo's shop the next day. While Ayo was distracted, Ken planted a tiny camera in the back room, aimed directly at the altar. A week passed and the team reviewed the footage. What they saw sent chills down their spines. Ayo was performing rituals every night, chanting over bowls of hair and pouring strange substance onto the altar. On some occasions, customers' names were written on pieces of paper and burnt as he muttered incantations. "This is it," Chief Adebayo said, his tone grim. "This is the proof we need." But Ayo was not oblivious to the growing threat. He could feel the walls closing in, and the spirit warned him of impending danger. "They are coming for you," the spirit hissed. "You must act quickly or you lose everything." Ayo decided to make one final desperate move. That night, he performed the powerful ritual, one that required a large offering. As Linda and Eve sat in Chief Adeboyo's office, revealing the footage, Linda's phone buzzed. She looked down and froze. It was a message from unknown number. "You have gone too far. Tonight, we'll finish this." Eve read the message over Linda's shoulder. Her face pale. What does he mean? Before they could process it, the light in the office flickered and went off. The room turned into darkness, and a chilling wind swept through the space. "Stay calm," Chief Adeboyo said, though his voice betrayed a hint of fear. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the hallway, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps. "He's here," Linda whispered, her heart racing. In the darkness, they heard Ayo's voice, low and menacing. "You should have stayed out of this. Now you will see what happens when you meddle in things beyond your understanding." Eve held Linda's arm as Chief Adeboyo reached for her phone to call for backup. But before he could die, the door burst open, and Ayo stepped inside, holding the idol in one hand and a knife in the other. "You think you can expose me?" Ayo said. "You don't understand the power I possess." Linda and Eve backed away, fear gripping them. Chief Adeboyo stood his ground. "Your time is up, Ayo," the chief said, his voice steady. "We have enough evidence to stop you." Ayo laughed, a hollow sound. "Evidence means nothing when I control the narrative." Suddenly, the idol in Ayo's hand began to glow, emanating a strange light. The room felt heavier and Linda struggled to breathe. "This ends now," Ayo shouted, raising the idol above his head. But before he could complete whatever he intended, the sound of siren pierced the night. Backup had arrived. Ayo hesitated, his hand holding the idol shaking. The spirit's voice echoed in his mind, screaming for him to act. But the sound of approaching footsteps and shouted command from the police forced him to drop the knife and flew through the window. Linda, Eve and Chief Adeboyo were left shaking but alive. The police quickly secured the area and manhunt for Ayo was launched. The idol left behind in the chaos was confiscated and handed over to the experts for investigation. But even with Ayo gone, Linda and Eve knew this wasn't over. The days following Ayo's escape were a whirlwind of investigation and heightened security. Linda and Eve, now under police protection, worked closely with Chief Adeboyo to ensure all evidence was submitted and made public. The footage of Ayo's ritual and the confiscated idol became the centerpiece of a growing media storm. Ayo's empire crumbled as the truth unraveled. His once loyal customers abandoned him. The barbershop was shut down and the other barbers in Lagos found relief as their businesses revived. 2 weeks later, a breakthrough came. The police received a tip about Ayo's whereabouts. He had been spotted in a remote part of the city, hiding in an old abandoned warehouse. A team was dispatched immediately, and after a tense set-off, Ayo was captured. When he was brought in for questioning, Ayo initially refused to speak. But as the weight of his actions bore down on him, he began to break. "I only wanted to succeed," he muttered, his voice filled with regret. "The spirit promised me everything: wealth, power, customers. But I lost control. I became its slave. Ayo confessed to everyone, from the rituals to the role the idol played in his unnatural speed and success. He explained how he had been lured into the dark path by a spiritualist who claimed the idol would guarantee prosperity but required constant offering to maintain its power. With Ayo in custody, the authority turned their attention to dismantling the network of spiritualists, enabling such practice. The idol was examined by experts and safely destroyed in a carefully monitored ritual, ensuring its power could harm no one else. For Linda and Eve, the end of the ordeal brought a mix of relief. They had risked everything to expose Ayo's sinister deeds, as though the experience had left them shaken. It also strengthened their resolve to stand against injustice. Months later, life returned to normal. Linda resumed her studies, and Eve's journalism career soared after her investigative reporting on Ayo's case gained widespread recognition. One evening, as they sat together at a quiet cafe, Eve looked at Linda and smiled. "We did it," she said softly. "We stopped him." Linda nodded. "But more importantly, we showed people that the truth is worth fighting for, no matter how dark things seem. The light will always win." The lesson of Ayo's downfall spread far and wide. Chasing success through dishonest and harmful means only leads to destruction. His story becomes a cautionary tale, a reminder to value hard work and integrity over shortcuts and greed. Linda and Eve knew that the fight against such practice wasn't over, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with courage, strength, and the knowledge that even the darkest secret wouldn't stay hidden forever. Thank you, my people. If you enjoyed this story like I did, please help me. Subscribe, please. Comment and share. Thank you very much. See you in my next story.